Hey, it is your buddy, Peace and Harmony, with you here today. Much love going out to all the beautiful empowered harmonizers. We are zooming in and focusing in on a great viewer question, and that is what is really happening, or what do you have to be careful about when you feel that you are being manipulated? In other words, you're not being given the full story. Things are hidden. You're not being clued in. Uh, you are feeling that there is something that you have to agree to that might not be in your best interest, or you feel that you're sort of just getting shrugged off, not listened to, not being heard, seen, validated. So this becomes really existential when people are sort of looking at what makes them happy. And if you're around really people who are unsupportive, so it doesn't even mean that they're, not giving you support. It's that they're withholding support. So you don't even physically get a chance to be sort of included in a sense of equality. There's always a feeling of domination. I would say is an important aspect of recognizing manipulation. When you're with people who are manipulative, there is an agenda which they are trying to control an outcome. So that creates a lot of stress for people, especially if they're trying to create your outcome, or you're feeling that you're not able to have a flow or a fluidity. Manipulation is when someone is trying to deceive or hide something from you with the implicit knowledge that they know something that you don't, and are then taking advantage of what you might consider this then to be a created vulnerability. Just like a child is vulnerable to being able to make their own food or build their own house, they are vulnerable. They need protection. They need adults. They need guidance. They need love. So in other words, that is what vulnerability is. In other words, beyond your control, and then what another is able to perceive. So for example, why does this happen? Manipulation. So a parent manipulating a child for the parent's interest and not for the child's interest is taking advantage of someone's vulnerability. In other words, they don't know better, they don't have life experience, they don't have vocabulary, they don't have the years of living that the parents do. So that is a vulnerability. So kids can be very much taken advantage of. Adults can be vulnerable in the same way. And people will create vulnerabilities in others if there is manipulation going on. And so not giving you positive or inclusive conversation, I feel, is a manipulation. It's designed to create an outcome that is according to an agenda, a mission, a plan, something is pre-calculated or premeditated before you even have a chance. So you don't get a chance to be represented or included. There is oftentimes an exclusivity on the hands of a manipulator. In other words, I'm going to control how much of this you get, how much of that you get, or how much of this. And then I know that you will be hurt if I don't do that. So if I want your attention, I know that if I do this, I'll be pushing another's buttons. So manipulation, meaning it's not within your control. In other words, you're being made not perceptive. So, being made not perceptive, people might be vulnerable. In other words, they are then following this person's authority. So you have to really look at who is trying to claim authority and why. And if they are trying to utilize you as part of the equation or part of the calculation of being factored out or not included, then you have to look at this really as an unfairness and manipulation. I really have a penchant for this, especially when there are vulnerabilities. Vulnerabilities meaning like you have a big heart, you're empathetic, you love to give, and then you jump up and down when you've made somebody happy. You're like, oh, I'm so glad to. So this can become a vulnerability. In other words, they're saying, oh, Andrew over here, every time this happens, then he'll do this. And then so and so with a big heart, they'll sacrifice what's important for themselves for another. Empathy. And so people who are manipulative oftentimes will surround themselves for people who can be supportive and sort of all giving, and that they can then sort of have their will with, have their whim with. So this is where things in power gets really important to acknowledge and validate. Meaning that if you are in this sort of, you're being triangulated, a smear campaign, a character assassination, this oftentimes is part of a mission, pre-calculated and deliberate. In other words, they're seeing things through the goggle or a lens of the way that they want to see things. And it oftentimes has nothing to do with reality. So people, you got to get a reality check when you're around manipulators. If you're used to being too trusting, be careful. If you like to be carefree, that's awesome. But, oftentimes being naive, ignorant, or uninformed will not suit you in the long run, especially when it comes to warding off manipulation. Tactics to take advantage of your vulnerabilities. Know what your vulnerabilities are. Know what your weaknesses are. In other words, I am sensitive to this. I am sensitive to that. I feel this, So know that about yourself. Know it like Braille. In other words, feel it before you can see it. Know that this bump is coming up, or this reaction where you're reactive, lunging, sending yourself down an emotional, empty rabbit hole, and, realize that to what degree can't you shore up and strengthen up this vulnerability? Meaning you don't have to become cold or callous or upset. Everybody can't be trusted. Don't cheat yourself out of happiness, out of a happy life. And one that is balanced, I would say, will be more, strong and steady, or, slow and steady will win the race when it comes to healing and breakthroughs. So if you are being manipulated, you might find that you're not being given a certain respect, that, there, in other words, there will be just sort of a lot of variance. Manipulators, I would say, they're always looking to work an agenda. So they are going to try to create an outcome or a perspective, oftentimes which can be far from truth. Meaning they can, put on a falseness and then throw you under the bus when they leave. They can act a certain way to your face and then be something totally different. This is manipulation. And this takes a lot of mental energy. A lot of people, don't want to live unauthentic or false lives. They don't like the pressure. And oftentimes, manipulation, you'll find that the relationship might feel unsustainable. Meaning it's too, it's causing you undue stress, pressure, unhappiness. You're raking yourself over the coals. You're coming up sort of feeling depleted or empty. And, these are oftentimes people think that there's something wrong with them. They're unattractive, unlovable, not worthy of being talked to. So they're drawing these bottom line emotional, bottom lines, and they're not giving themselves the shine of, they're not giving themselves the shadow of the doubt. They're not seeing their own light. You have to realize, that this is part of your awareness. But part of your awareness, they're like, if you've been, don't pay attention, what if it's important to you? And then this is important to you. Why are you going to deny your reality for another? So oftentimes I would say that's an indicator of manipulation. And it might feel very gamey. very conditional based, meaning only if you do this, then. So when we talk about really loving relationships, there has to be a certain degree of unconditional love. In other words, your hair's out of place, but I still love you. You've got pink toenail polish on rather than red, but I still love you. You're wearing a baseball hat rather than a cowboy hat, but I still love you. In other words, you don't have to be according to what someone else desires. You are your own person. You're your own person. Amen. The world needs unique and individual people with different skills. We're all not meant to be the same. And so a manipulator, usually they want to fit you into a peg, a cubby hole, a shape that oftentimes is not what you're made of. In other words, you might be cooking material. You might be an excellent chef. You might be great with hospitality. You might have a great sense of humor. You might be very gregarious and affable. Great and, with people. You love to make people feel good. And it's a give, so this might be really you. This might be your authentic self. Someone, and so this is where you thrive. Being this way, feeling this way, reading, writing, whatever it is that is, you, with all the different facets and idiosyncrasies and so that is you. But a manipulator, they're going to want to try to curtail, shut down, not allow, truncate, not give you your right arm, not give you your left leg, tell you can't cut your hair or you can't, they're going to try to control certain things. And it gets really, really, really sad when people aren't allowed their very human liberties, because of manipulators. So you have to be willing to see through the heavy-handedness. You have to develop like X-ray vision. You have to be able to see the hands of manipulation and go, okay, I see this tactic for what it is. And without judging, without reacting or responding, don't give your truth away. Don't throw your pearls at swine. Keep the pearls for yourself. Keep a wisdom for yourself. Stop always trying to, help others, but look at yourself and realize manipulation. You'll usually feel a sort of constraint and they're trying to inhibit. And so, you have to look at what manipulation does. In other words, what is the outcome that they're trying to control? They're usually trying to control a perspective, which you're entitled to your own perspective. Just like when you go to, what are some examples? Always, don't, don't order this at the restaurant. I'll order this. You can have some of mine. Don't get those, don't buy this. We'll do that. Don't study this. That won't make you any money. Don't love this person. They can never do, whatever sort of manipulation. Some might be common sense, but some might be manipulative. In other words, designed to control you in a specific way with an outcome that appeases them, if you will. In other words, a narcissist always wants to look good. So if part of their core insecurity is that if they don't look good in a specific way, they will then project and throw others under the bus if you're not complicit or docile for this. Docile meaning like, oh yeah, I'm just going to be a pushover and do whatever for whatever and take whatever. So realize oftentimes if this had become like a survival, in other words, if you might have been docile, sacrificing, empathetic, and, hurt and bled for others because of this, you do not have to be the same way anymore. You can change. And change is good for something like this. When you're getting away from manipulators, I would say especially in today's day and age of all this going on, from the dating apps to da 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 da, you have to. This is important for everybody to become aware of what is really, I would say, your best positive early direction, thinking, behaving, feeling, and becoming, and what is right for you. And make sure that you don't have to be a mirror image of what a controller is needing for you. I mean, you have to be able to breathe into your own life and be able to be inspired and have momentum and your sails filled with wind that gets exciting and taking you where you want to go. So and to mark that separation for yourself and not feel guilty, survivor guilt. I should, can't, so many I can't. What about I can? I am competent. I am, not worthy of being manipulated here. So if you say that, give a little bit of credit to yourself, even if credit isn't due. Be able to say, you know what, I have done and come so far. Give credit where credit is due and surround yourself with others who aren't intimidated, threatened by your happiness or are jealous because of this and are mistreating you because of this. Because these people, you need to switch that out. You surround yourself. Yes, there are people who, who have a certain standard and a boundary, and they don't need to hurt, manipulate others in order to have a relationship. So be willing to try it on for size, and to take baby steps. You don't have to have a huge mammoth breakthrough, but if you stay the course, eventually you'll understand about becoming your best, and that not in a way that's ego-based, that is unsustainable or false or something of that nature. Look at what is long-standing, true, strong, is able to be ignited, your passion, your purpose, who you are as a person, your values, and realize that you are important. You are a person of value. Every person has been through a myriad of experiences, and this gives them really a sort of intrinsic value. And if you can look onto your own intrinsic value and intrinsic value of others, you'll really be able to grow in serenity, strength, and be very resilient to manipulation, not be bothered by it. See it for what it is and be willing to, not judge, but just not take part or parcel with those people who don't have your best interests, your growth, or your thriving state in mind. Be willing to sort of make that decision making and call and validate yourself and keep it as a sort of a private and sacred truth. You must be able to have a value-centered sense of self and know what these are, and know that these are miraculous, because oftentimes these are things that carry on through verbal tradition, things that, are important and nostalgic, and don't be cut short. Don't be made into the Mother Teresa or whatever, syndrome where you feel that you don't have a right to be empowered or to stand up or to be number one at something. You are number one. Number one is with you. If you've been manipulated into feeling that you have to be two, second, third fiddle, 18th fiddle, out in the doghouse, wherever it is you think, that someone has marginalized you for some sort of reason, take back that and, realize that your sensitivity oftentimes is your strength, but you need to be able to manage it and to be able to shape it, and so that it won't get you into trouble or cause undue pressure or stress or cause things to get really ugly. In other words, develop a little bit of a steering wheel on your emotions. Just be like, nope, I'm not falling in that pothole. I'm not going to get a conversation stuck or snagged here. I'm not going to get a foot snagged here. I'm not going to trip up. not fall on my face. I see the minefield for what it is, and I'm not falling for it. I have a different situation, and you don't have to then, share your happiness with people who are taking you for granted or taking advantage of you. So, and often it's usually that manipulation of an outcome. In other words, something that you really want or that can have of your own, so to speak. Your own this, your own meal, your own bed, your own light, your own in other words, that you have for yourself. In other words, you are respected as an individual here, and that you are given this with guidance. So usually, manipulators, they won't allow you that sort of feeling of owning it. They'll try to, especially when things get good, you think, oh, then fine, this is when they're going, oh, but look at the pimple on your face, or they will try to throw you down. Don't fall for those tactics. It's designed, and just sort of dodge it. Just be like, yep, there you go. Dodge a bullet. From manipulators. Realize that they will try to pull you down to get what they want, and use a lot of sort of mind problems. Manipulation, meaning emotional manipulation, and using your vulnerabilities to make you feel bad. Being Caucasian. I can say then on many occasions, have I been mistreated? Contrary to the truth, or being a woman, or being of a certain type. You're gonna find yourself people don't want certain things for you. And it can be your own spouse, it can be your family, it can be your workplace, it can be your community. But you have to see through otherwise. You have to see through it. It is not fair for you to just have the wool pulled over your eyes and to say, I guess that's all there is for me. Don't throw in and give up. And we're going to do a lot more videos, I think, on people, video advice for men, especially on this, because oftentimes men are manipulated by women for these specific outcomes, for things that they want that are taking away the rights or power or respect of the male counterparts. In other words, because they want on their, so greed oftentimes is a fuel for manipulation. So look out for the cause that creates the effect, and don't be rendered one for the trap. Begin to see what traps are, and be willing to say, what, not going there. Instead, I choose liberty, and instead I choose competence. Instead, I choose my healthy perspective. Instead, I choose my truth. Instead, I choose to develop my talents and to be supportive of self. Oftentimes, this does not feel very good to people who have been manipulated, because they're so used to sort of something different, and only being validated when they're giving into the outcome of another. In other words, and so be willing to make an emotional change, and especially one that gives you freedom, that gives you liberty, that gives you more energy, and being able to sort of see yourself in a better light. Be willing to realize that oftentimes manipulators, they want to cast a negative light. They want to, smudge charcoal all over your parade. Wash it off, dust it off. They're just oftentimes doing that. Look how, this. Be willing to not give that any heed, or to not give that any attention, because then you're really oftentimes then falling for a trap that only causes a lot more struggle to get out. So if you find that, you'll understand and be willing to see what manipulation is, and just say, I see through that now, and then that is okay. Be willing to be an authority for yourself on this, even if you've been fooled or played before. Take it advantage of for your vulnerabilities. know what they are, know how to protect, know how to really tap into, and know how to balance. It is not fun. It is not worth being manipulated. And to become aware of it and become informed and to know the difference, especially in relationships. This is your buddy, Peace and Harmony, with you here today. And I hope these videos do help. Please share, please subscribe, and for goodness sake, please donate for more great tools, videos, discussion, and support. Have a beautiful day.